You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
So let's get into the what then for our next question. What do these people ultimately want? We've sort of touched on it a little bit. There's a lot we can say about it, from, RFID tracking chips to the banking systems to transhumanism. But I think, like, if you know what the destination is, then it's a lot easier to figure out the journey it's going to take to get there. And we can start seeing some of the plans that they've set before they actually happen, which is obviously what we want. So, what is the end goal for this group of globalists?
Yeah, I'd say a kind of scaled out version of what we're seeing right now, right? A world where people basically stay in their house all day because they work from home, doing some corporate job on their computer. Whenever they have a break, they can just jump in their metaverse and go play in some other thing. Order all their food to the house, only buy stuff through Amazon, so it's shipped to the house. And eventually, and this is even spoken by Fauci and some of these guys, how could we get to the point where everyone has vaccine makers in their home, and every time there's a new variant or a new virus, we just upload the sequence and they can print their own vaccine at home? So it's like people don't even have to leave, and if you do have to leave, you'll send a robot for you instead. Maybe you want to test those robots, right? So if you think the lockdown was bad, think about society actually being built in around that, like that being the default versus it being this sort of kind of random little scenario that's popped up. So that's a big part of it. One of the ways that they control us is by, if you can't start your own business, because people just don't do that anymore, there aren't any more mom and pop shops downtown, and the only place to buy anything is on Amazon, right? Then that's a massive kind of one of these angles that they've been able to totally control how we behave and what we do. I like that you brought up transhumanism already as well, because there is some sort of merging of humanity as we know it and a more technologically driven society. The Great Reset paints that picture really well and so openly.
And the disruption is an opportunity for us to reset.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
A golden opportunity to build something better. He calls it the Great Reset.
For my part, through my Sustainable Markets Initiative and the Great Reset,
I want to achieve a great reset, to rewrite Japan's blueprint.
You have finished right state during, the Great Reset.
William, we're about to see, or it's been announced that we're about to see a Great Reset.
I'm hopeful that we're going to have a Great Reset.
Next year's event titled The Great Reset.
The pandemic presents an opportunity.
Most people are going to want to leave their jobs or want different jobs anyway, so we'll replace them with robots. We got to automate more things. Something that comes to mind that still blows my mind when you realize it is once they do start to replace things like truck drivers with automated vehicles.
Right.
That's a huge
industry
sector of the industry. Yeah, millions and millions of people out of work, and a lot of those people aren't like influencers and YouTubers who can just go make an ebook or start some other thing. They don't have anything else. They're not really plugged into anything else. So it's going to be a very kind of lost part of the populace, and I don't hear any discussion of that. Just the excitement that we're going to have these cool robots driving us around. Instead of thinking about how this actually affects people. And that's a big part of it. Removing the middle class is again where they want us to end up, having income divided as far as possible. So changing how we live our lives, how we engage in the marketplace, how we create our own income. Those are some really, and just how we treat our own health. A big part of the value for them of this sort of pandemic based premise is that it keeps reinforcing this notion of how health works. Right? So eventually they're going to want a world where everyone's, like the Soylent Green stuff. It's like everyone's just popping pills and drinking their little perfected government approved milkshakes that are made out of almond milk,
Oh no.
And just turning us into robots. There's so many movies that give us such a great metaphor of this. And unfortunately, they're all becoming more and more accurate.
I know. Yeah. I mean, we have to deal, plain and simple, we have to deal with this shadow aspect of humanity or humanity won't last. It's just that simple. When 90% or something of the wealth is owned by less than 1% of the population, we have a sickness on this planet. And so, we can't move forward like that, obviously, into a world that any of us want to live in until we deal with that. So, that's why it can be frustrating when so many people are still not really awake to what's really going on, and clapping for things like vaccine mandates. It's like, I don't care I think it's great if you're super pro-vax, no problem, but everyone should be against a mandate, because what kind of world do you want to live in, right? Do you want to live in a world where, every vaccine gives the pharmacy industry $30 billion? I saw that stat somewhere. So let's say 20 to 30. So very likely scenario could be in 5 years, 10 years, if they succeeded with this vaccine mandate thing, there's 5 new vaccines every year that we all have to get, or we can't go anywhere, we can't grocery shop. And at some point, even the most pro-vax person on the planet is going to be like, I'm so freaking sick of taking these stupid vaccines every year. 10 vaccines a year, really? It's like, well, when you're lining Big Pharma's pockets like that and they have you, in their clutches, why would they let go, right? Yeah. You have to stand up for yourself and for your rights. And the time to do that is now.
Yeah. But it's not even for your health. It's for you're protecting everyone else.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So who cares about your health? You should be caring about everyone else's health, right?
Yep.
And it's not just the money disproportion, it's the actual wisdom disproportion, right? These shadowy government figures, they understand how consciousness works, right?
Very much
I think
so.
that's the biggest disproportion. It's like everyone doesn't even realize what game we're supposed to be playing in the first place.
It's pure psychology.
Yeah, they do. And that's why they're so good at kind of getting us caught up in these things, right? And getting in some anti this or pro this conversation that keeps us stuck in our sort of primal binary part of our brain, instead of going, wait a minute, who's creating this conversation in the first place?
Yeah.
And what are they gaining from us bickering at each other with all these things?
Yeah. And I want to mention on that thread, it's clear that this transhumanist agenda, which is very attached to like a lot of like radical liberal ideals, that is really depends or values the ego itself, the body. Okay, well, I need to improve myself. I need a chip in my mind to improve my memory, and I need to alter the natural DNA to enhance. So there's this fundamental lack kind of in that conversation, or void, or attempt to perfect. And those, like we have illustrated, that group is the group behind this great reset. And so you have the illusion, and using principles that seem to be very just in the highest good of all, such as, well, everything will be shared and there won't be any ownership. And if that on the surface sounds like everyone will have what they need and be provided for, and you won't need to own anything because it'll be this united sharing. First of all, to enforce that doesn't make it a choice. Like, this is how it has to be. You can't own anything, so there's no choice. So it can't be positive. It can't actually be uniting. And then number two is only through the understanding that happiness, safety, security, what we all are actually seeking, abundance, we could pick any word, any buzzword, only through the recognition that that is something that is innate to us. Only when we understand that as a people will that be reflected back to us in these elites who, in my opinion, desperately feel like they are actually powerless and need to perfect and have this, trauma that they haven't looked at. And so I just see this whole agenda as like trying to use principles like, if I really understand myself as infinite consciousness, like we talk about non-duality a lot on the show, then, infinite consciousness doesn't own anything. But in no context do you need to make a rule that says, hey, I want to make sure you don't own anything. It's very different, but it uses these principles that even to people that are, good people and logical and smart, it makes sense to them, but they're acting from this level of consciousness that is responsible for us being here anyway. So just to wrap that up for you guys watching, and Nathaniel, I think you were kind of alluding to this, we can't move forward and transform what's happening without the shift in consciousness. And I think those that don't understand that, it's just so easy to grab on to someone that makes sense and is intellectually smart and puts on a good image, and that's kind of what got us here.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point as well, talking about how you can't create unity through a negative by taking away people's free will and then saying, oh, doing this is we're gonna bring everyone together, forcing everyone to take this product. And that's what's been happening, right? The whole entire pandemic is you have to wear this mask everywhere you go. You have to shut your business down or we're going to fine you. And this is building back better. This is unity.
And enable us not just to come through this crisis, but to come back stronger and build back better.
But this global pandemic has also created an opportunity to build back better.
To keep drawing together our shared experience and insight and enable us to build back New Zealand even better.
But the COVID-19 pandemic can also be a moment for resolving long-standing conflicts and addressing structural weaknesses. 4 sets of priorities can guide the response to build back better.
Build back better. The slogan was used just here. 3 prime ministers and the freaking Secretary General of the UN. It is everywhere, and it predates the Biden administration. The European Commission used Build Back Better to announce their COVID stimulus fund. The UN uses it all the time. And guess who else? The World Economic Forum. And they make it very clear what this seemingly harmless slogan is truly all about. Let me quote them. To build back better, we must reinvent capitalism. Did you vote for that? Because I didn't. I didn't even hear it discussed. So in other words, Joe Biden's campaign slogan and his main political goal that he and the Democrats are now trying to get passed in the Senate is a UN and World Economic Forum propaganda line for the restructuring of all of society and ending capitalism as we know it.
And it's like, as long as the negative path can convince you that it's for the sake of the greater good, or it's some virtuous reason why we're doing this negative thing, then people will sort of go along with it, because, people like to think the best, see the best in others, and hope for the best and assume the best. And sometimes that's a lack of wisdom and discernment that can get us in a lot of trouble.